An input display is an integral component for any fighting game stream. It lets the viewer know a lot of additional and important information, such as when advanced input techniques are being performed, or the streamer's intent in any given situation. An input display can also add visual interest to your stream layout and differentiate your production from others in the category. This is a tutorial on how to showcase custom input displays for fighting games on PC. This method uses two lightweight programs. The first piece of software is NoBoard. This is the actual display. Summed up succinctly, NoBoard displays a set of images, and when a keyboard key is pressed, it displays a secondary image on top of the first. Creating custom displays in NoBoard is a fairly straightforward process. However, for use with gamepads and arcade sticks, we'll first need to convert our controller inputs into keystrokes. For this, we need a second piece of software, JoyToKey. JoyToKey will enable us to bind a keystroke for each distinct button on our controller of choice. You can find the official download links for NoBoard and JoyToKey in the video description below. Also in the description is a link to a custom input display pack that I have created. The package contains JoyToKey profiles for Xbox and PlayStation controllers, as well as my NoBoard skins for Street Fighter, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, Them's Fightin' Herds, Tekken, Guilty Gear, and even a generic layout for any miscellaneous 6-button game. I've hosted the file pack on my Patreon page. Anyone can download them for free and use them however they see fit. To get set up as quickly as possible, download the zip files for NoBoard, JoyToKey, and my file pack. Then, manually extract both NoBoard and JoyToKey into one directory for convenience. Once you've installed both programs, you can unzip my file pack. Inside, you'll find two folders. One containing JoyToKey profiles for various types of controllers, and another containing NoBoard skins. To install the JoyToKey profiles, first you'll need to run JoyToKey as an administrator. Then, on the left-hand side of the JoyToKey window, select File, then select Open Config Data folder in Explorer. This is going to open up the directory where any profile you create will be saved. Drag and drop the CFG files from my pack into this JoyToKey folder. After you've dragged and dropped the files, close and then reopen JoyToKey. By default, the Windows X button is set to minimize JoyToKey, so either right-click on the taskbar and close the program, or change the X button's function in the Preferences menu. Once you close and reopen JoyToKey, you should see several new profiles on the left-hand side. Select a profile that matches your controller type, and then, on the right-hand side of the JoyToKey window, select the Options tab. Ensure that Stick/POV is set to Show All Axes, and that the Configure Directional Inputs as separate buttons and Configure 8-Way for POV boxes are checked. Finally, ensure that JoyToKey is detecting your controller by pressing down and holding some of the buttons. You should see the corresponding keybind slot become highlighted in yellow. If JoyToKey is not detecting your controller or arcade stick, navigate to the Settings drop-down menu in the upper left and select Configure Joysticks. In this window, navigate to the Advanced Setting tab and make sure that your input device is selected in the uppermost drop-down window. To install my NoBoard skins, open up your NoBoard folder and then the Keyboards folder. Drag and drop the entire NKB Arcade Sticks folder from my pack into the Keyboards directory. Start up NoBoard and right-click anywhere on the window. Select Load Keyboard from the drop-down and then select NKB arcade sticks. Then, from the keyboard definitions column, select the display you want and make sure that the keyboard style is not set to global default. If you only wish to use the skins and profiles that I've provided, once you have all the files installed and placed correctly, run both JoyToKey and NoBoard as an administrator. Press all the buttons on your controller one by one and check if they work with NoBoard. Once everything is working, open your game of choice and double check that none of your in-game keybinds overlap with the JoyToKey keybinds. If they do, change the in-game keybind to something that does not overlap. Remember, JoyToKey is supposed to be driving NoBoard and NoBoard alone, not the game. If everything works and you're satisfied with the skins I've provided, you can skip to the final section of this video. If something does not work, or if you want to use different keybinds, customizing your keybinds in JoyToKey and NoBoard is a fairly straightforward process. To start binding keys in JoyToKey, plug in your arcade stick or gamepad and select the Joystick 1 tab. Press and hold down the button you want to bind. The corresponding keybind slot should light up yellow in the JoyToKey window. Double-click on the highlighted binding, then, under Keyboard Emulation, click into one of the 4 fields. Once you've clicked on the field, press the key you want to correspond to the button that you were holding down. The keyboard key you pressed should appear in the field. Click OK to confirm your settings, and repeat for every button and direction on your controller. Remember to save your profile and rename it with a relevant name by selecting Save under the File drop-down menu. If you want to rebind keys in NoBoard, first make sure that JoyToKey is running and your controller is plugged in. Open the keyboard display you want to use, and then right-click anywhere and select Start Editing. Once in editing mode, you can right-click on any of the elements of the display and select Element Properties. Once you are in the Key Properties window, on the right-hand side, you should see 3 buttons: Add, Remove, and Detect. And beside them, you'll see a list of key codes. To bind a key, left-click on the Detect button, and then left-click in the Key Codes field. Now, press the button on your controller that you would like to bind. The key code should appear in the field. Now click Add and ensure that the key code you just added is the only one on the list. If it isn't, select the extra key code and left-click Remove. Hit Accept and test out your new keybind. Once you're satisfied, right-click anywhere on the NoBoard window and remember to save the keyboard definition and save the keyboard style. If you want to start completely from scratch and create your own NoBoard skin, you'll first need to create the appropriate files. Open up your NoBoard directory and navigate to the Keyboards folder. Duplicate the Games Legacy folder and rename it to whatever you like. Inside this folder, delete everything except the Arrows folder. Now run NoBoard. Right-click anywhere on the window and select Load Keyboard. Choose a name that you just made from the drop-down. Then select Arrows from the keyboard definition and hit Close. This should leave you with a display that looks like this. We're going to base our new custom layout on this Arrows file. Right-click anywhere and hover over Save Definition. Select Save As and type the name of the game you'll be using this for. Then, right-click anywhere again and select Save Style and Save As. Again, give it an appropriate name. Now, close NoBoard, navigate to the new folder you just created, and you should see the new display. create another folder named Images, one word, all lowercase. All of the images used in your display will be placed in this folder. I recommend using photo editing software like Photoshop or GIMP to create them at a size of 80 by 80 pixels. You'll need 2 images for each button you wish to display, one for when the button is loose and another for when the button is being pressed. You can now go back and delete the arrows files as they are no longer needed. Now that we're done with file management, we can move on to creating our custom display. To edit your keyboard, right-click anywhere and select Start Editing. Right-click on any of the buttons on screen and hit Remove Element. Do this for each item on the screen. Now, with a blank canvas, right-click and select Keyboard Style. The Style menu will enable you to change the background of the keyboard. This could be an image or a solid color. I recommend setting this to a solid color with the RGB values of 00255. This is a pure blue. Choosing this color will not interfere with your display if you wish to chroma key out the background and also have green buttons. Finally, right-click anywhere and save your work. Under Save Style, select Save As. Give the style an appropriate name and make sure that Save as Global Style is not checked. Once you've finished saving your work, right-click anywhere and select Load Keyboard. Ensure that the keyboard style is set to the name that you just created. Once the background is complete, to create a button, right-click, go to Add Element and select Add Keyboard Key. Right-click on the new button and select Element Properties. In the Properties window, select Rectangle. In this window, set the size to match that of the images you will be using. Click Apply, then Accept. Right-click on a new button and select Element Style to change the appearance of the buttons. Make sure Overwrite Default Style is checked. Then, in the Image field, type the exact file name for the image you wish to be displayed. Now, set up the keybind you wish to correspond to your button, and test that it works. Repeat this procedure for each button you wish to display. You can easily move elements around by left-clicking and dragging them into place. You can also use the arrow keys to nudge elements pixel by pixel for more exact positioning. For directional inputs, I recommend carefully arranging your images to simulate a D-pad or arcade stick lever. Here, you can see that I've positioned these images on top of one another, and the active image contains a blue circle as to hide the other inactive images. This gives the illusion that the ball top is animated. It can take some fiddling in your favorite image creation software, but it's not too difficult to set up. You can always use the image files that I've provided as a template. After all is done, and if you're satisfied with how the display works and looks, you'll need to open up your favorite streaming software and get it set up in your scenes. Here, I'm using OBS Studio, but the concept should prove the same regardless of the streaming software you use. Select Window Capture and add the No Board window. You may need to crop out the top of the window or select settings that choose not to display the window's border. Add a chroma key filter and select the appropriate color to filter out. This is why we made the No Board background 255 blue. It is important to note that if you minimize No Board using the Windows Minimize button, it will not update the display. For this all to work properly, do not minimize No Board. The display will still update if the window is not in focus, so just let it go behind whatever else you're using, or let it sit on a secondary monitor. Having an input display is a small but significant detail in creating a high-quality fighting game stream and viewer experience. A detail like that can make the difference between a good stream and a great one. But I mean, hey, what do I know? This video and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons. I would like to extend a special shout out to my Tier 3 patrons. If you would like to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing here on YouTube, liking or disliking the video, and leaving a comment below.